I wanted to give a quick update on this thing I'm working on with Champollion and scripts. I think I got a basic framework in place. I found some code to use the L4Z library. I won't be able to put that in this weekend. I'll be working on that probably over the course of the next week. And then I've got some refactoring that I need to continue to do so I can get some of this stuff at least released to some degree. But and that way I can kind of tinker with it as I go. But I was kind of showing you how I was kind of showing everybody how I use the existing features kind of creatively, if you want to call it. But I use the existing features of being able to run a specific program, put the output of that program to a specific folder, look for a specific file to be created, and then do something accordingly. So to kind of round the stack out, and again, I won't be able to do the archives yet because I really need to work this in. I need to put this pretty deep into the subsystem so that it'll be pretty much transparent. But I'll talk about that a bit later. Like I say, I'm going to be really tied up this weekend and probably the first of next week, so I'm not even really going to be able to do any of this stuff. But let me show you what I have. So the system I was talking about, the process, because I'm coding around a process. So the process I was looking at was to get a chunk of the papyrus, which we're going to do. This is a pretty good chunk. So to get a chunk of the papyrus, and let's say that I wanted to look up a particular script, and we're going to use Champollion. And again, being able to extract things out of the archive will be perfect. That'll be perfect. Hopefully that will be working, and it'll be something useful. But let's find, like, let's say okay, let's say this. I think the universal scrapper or deconstructor or something that has the source scripts with it. But what I did is menu systems. The actual menus have checks to show you what this looks like. Let's see. That's the source that we're going to be putting into the code for L4Z. But let's take a look at menus here. The menus have checks. This is a check, and each check does a certain thing, from checking flags to checking text in a list view item, in an actual item. You can check different things. And what it does, it gates the menu option behind that check. It's almost like a codable if statement. For example, in this particular check 505, it actually looks for I believe it's the item ID. So if the item ID is a mod folder, then it's going to allow this menu where it says find the mod, it's going to allow that to show. So the menus are dynamic based on the form, based on how you code the menu in text files. There are kind of like three different types of menus. You have an absolute menu, which only shows you those options that you define for that form, each one of these things being a form. And then you have a menu that is common, so it's a common menu that's displayed for any form. And then you have a dynamic. So as an example, this, let's see, we want form types, I believe. This is an example of a dynamic menu. So which mods, the form which mods, which there's the definition. This is the input that we're wanting to capture. And then this is the dynamic menu for that form. So when this kind of structure exists, the common menu is used, and then there is a check, a gate, it's a conditional gate, which literally inserts the dynamic menu into the common menu. So if that check function or check identifier isn't in that common menu, then none of this stuff is going to come up. But that's kind of like how that works, and it's pretty cool because it's kind of codable, and you can put any text, whatever you want, however you wanted to say it. But so what I did, I have a check function which looks for text in a line. So I use that function to look for the word line. Now, I don't know if that, it's just the text line. Again, it could be any, literally any line, any text string can have the word line in it. So it's not an absolute. Remember, what I want to do is I'm trying to make something that's generic. I want to take something that is targeted specifically, but I want the code to be generic, that it works for just about any situation. So in this case, it looks for the word line. So what we're going to do is I put a new report in. It took very little time to write. Another little piece of info, I'm sorry if this overloads, but apologize in advance. But when this application opens a load order, it creates a conflict database. It's basically a database of resource files starting from the first plugin, and that includes the official plugins, all the way down through every mod, including loose files. So it stores it by relative file name, and then you have a relative file name of a file, and then it stores the sources that it finds for that relative file. So what I did is I just simply created a search. It's a search report, and to look at this database that's automatically created, and I'm looking for just a file pattern. So all I need to do is I realized yesterday that, oh my God, I can actually use the conflict database, and I don't have to do a lot of scanning because it's already scanned, it's already loaded. I probably could have used that with witch mods, but I can actually use that for witch mods too without having to actually do all that scanning, and probably be a lot faster. A whole lot less throughput, hard drive, throughput, IO throughput wise. That would probably save a lot of that IO bandwidth. But and yeah, that's really all it is. So you load a load order, it just scans all the archive files, pulls all the resource files, names it finds, adds those to a conflict database, and then adds loose files to it. So I literally I can look up any file, and I can get a list of mods, or a list of conflicts, source locations for that single file. And that's all I had to do. So I found there's a function built in to the items class, which lets me grab a container item. I just need to specify what the container marker is. So that's already built in. And the container marker was quotes. So I saw that the actual script name was in quotes. So that was easy to do. So I could grab that. But you can see here that, of course, he has the PEX and he has the PSC. So you can click on the PSC. That's for me, I put that in my external file, and it might be something common that somebody else wants to use. That's that. Or you can go into the PEX and do the same thing. So that's the system I showed yesterday, where you double clicked on a PEX. It knows the name of it because it actually got the file. It got the source of the file from that conflict database. It knows the file name and it knows the source. And then it just simply called Champollion. Now this is the 2016 Champollion. This is the one that I got off the Fallout 4 Nexus website. The Nexus website for Fallout 4. But it looks like there is a newer one that I'll need to compile, but I just kind of wanted to get it working. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So that gets that idea at least into a structure. So now it's in there, and it can be refined or something else. You can also, I went ahead in this particular form, I went ahead and put a text box down here. And I coded in the input stream that, I wanted to accept enter, not just a click. so that way it sends the input back. So I could literally, I can do workshop script.pex, and it will, again, load this conflict database looking for all forms of workshop script. And you can see that the 3 instances of workshop script, this is the conflict database. The rest of these are kind of unique. But you can see in the conflict database, the 3 items, the last one was the one, I believe, from Workshop Framework. So that's how you can see it. And that's just simply, using the conflict report. So you could look up other files in here if you want. It does support wildcards. Whenever I do it over here, this has the PSC file extension, so I have to strip that off. And I didn't want to put PEX in there. Like I didn't want to replace PSC with PEX. What I could do is I could go over here, maybe get an opinion on this. I could go over here. It's, I think it's 1540. Let's see, I need to put a 15 for, I'll get it right in a minute. There. So you can see, no, that's, no, 1540, not 60, went the wrong way. There we go. So here's the pipe function that, I can put another parameter up here. It's super, super easy to do. I could literally just, because the way the pipe works is you provide parameters, and then it will split those parameters into an array so I can access them, 1, element 0, element 1. And then there's another function, there's a list function in the lists class that will let me grab an item out of that array if it exists. If not, it just returns blank, and that way it doesn't crash because of a invalid index. But I could put this in here, and this way it would, because like I said, I have to strip off back here. I do have to strip off the PSC. So when I do this kind of a search, like if I go back here and do this search again, or we'll look for another one. If I go back in here and do this search again, I strip off the PSC, and I'm looking for basically the file name with no directory at all and no file extension. That's why it's coming up with both the PEX and the PSC. So I could put a variable in here and literally say, if you pass it a file extension, then tack that file extension on here. See where I get the name without file extension? I can tack it on here. I can put it on this, which I might go ahead and do, and that way you can look for a specific file extension without pulling them all. Or you could pull them all, or you could simply do a wildcard search. But one of the nice things about this, and I can put the code in there and just not pass the variable to it. But one of the nice things about not having a file extension, it will find both the PEX and the PSC. It'll find both the source and the bytecode if they exist. Because I was saying, like I said, it literally loads everything from every archive. It loads that directory. Every plugin that has any archive file, it'll load that directory up in sequential order, building that source conflict list. And it's there for however it needs to be used. But yeah, that's what I wanted to show you. So the construct is in there. It does work. If you look at TS here, there is, I think that's, what is that? I don't know what that is. Does that already exist? Oh yeah, that already exists. It actually won't re-extract it if it already exists. That's one of the kind of downsides to it. But what we can do is, and that's merely putting one line of code in the pipe for when files change. I didn't put it in there because when you're extracting a very large mod, it produces thousands of events. I believe it's right here. It should be up in here. Let's see, this one. So see, that's workshop. That's transfer settlement. So that brought that up, just like it kind of did yesterday. Don't have a clue what all this stuff means. Not really interested in, I don't know why people are worried about stealing their code. I know you mentioned that, but I don't, because the way that I look at it, I mean, I get it to some degree, but there's no way I could figure that out. I mean, I probably could in time, but I couldn't look at it and tell you what it is. But but it might help those that are working on something to try to help debug it. So I don't know why they worry about that to that degree. I mean, if it was ripped off verbatim, I would agree that that is a bad thing. But I've noticed, and now this is completely offshoot, but I noticed that a lot of times you will have people that swipe ideas, and they want to take credit, for those ideas. For example, let's say as an example, and I would never do this, but just to say as an example, I make transfer settlements, right? And I swipe his code and I use it. Well, I'm only going to have fame for a very short time. I mean, even if I wasn't called out on it, because that's not my idea. I didn't come up with it. I don't have that kind of mind that thinks about those things. So what I've seen in the places that I work is when that happens, people do get this boost of fame, this boost of wow, I'm the center of attention. Hey, look at me. But it doesn't last long because now they have to go back out and find something else that they can quote use to keep that fame going. So I kind of get it to that degree, but I'm cool with it. I have no intentions of stealing anybody's stuff. But anyways, I just had to throw that in there. But that is the structural framework of how that works. So if you have any feedback, just let me know. I won't know until I use it. I'll have to kind of use it, play around with it, see how it does. Instead of pumping this up to instead of pumping it up to, let's say, Notepad++, instead of pumping it up to this thing, I may pump it up to maybe just regular Notepad, or maybe even some type of editor, some type of source editor like Notepad++, to where I can open individual windows. Like each instance of that editor will have its own decompiled script in it, and that way I can look at the different scripts all at one time. I can have more than one open without having to toggle back. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. I mean, you could do it. It wouldn't be that hard to do. You would just change the target of what when you double click, you would change that target to something else, and Notepad++, if it's running, it just literally opens it up in a new tab. I could probably set it up different, but yeah. So that's that, and that kind of shows you how it fits in. I added very little code, honestly, other than just a brand new report, which needed to be in there anyways, and then I just pass it the name of the file. So yeah, thanks for the idea, and like I say, let me know if you have any feedback, and yeah, and I'll see what I can do. All right, you guys have a good evening.